on, Homer. Open the door for your mystery date.
Ooh, captain of the football team. He's a dreamboat. Don't wait up, Marge.
Okay, Bart, your turn. You got the DUD!
As you can tell from that sloppily edited meme, World's End Harem is the DUD of the anime ecchi genre. What do I mean about this? Well, simply put, if you were ordered to watch a random ecchi series and you drew World's End Harem, you'd be pretty disappointed in what you had to watch. As compared to the other series out there, it comes across as a bland, unfulfilling mess, which is mediocre in nearly every way. From its censorship to its waifu bait, there are just better ecchi anime out there that can do what it sets out to do without being as dull and lifeless. No one is really even talking about it, thanks to the production issues that force the anime to air only a single episode in fall 2021, and the rest in winter 2022. Meaning that it was competing against my dress-up darling in regards to etchiness, which was never going to end well. So with that in mind, let us talk about the most important part of every ecchi series, the girls. The main reason people ultimately watch ecchi series is due to the female characters in it, because you want good waifus. Now, the key problem with the female characters in World's End Harem is that they are bland as hell. To start with the main female character, the one that appears in all the posters and advertisements, her personality is that she does not have a personality. That she's a blank slate of a character due to her mostly being a clone of his childhood friend. Now, the thing about ecchi anime is most of them assault you based on what the main girl is like. You watch High School DxD because Rias is a sexy Onisan. Or, in Data Live, you want a yandere time-travelling girl. When the main female character of your series is a blank slate, it immediately gives off a vibe that this anime will be dull, and that extends to the other characters. With most of the girls having one personality quirk that defines their whole character, without any depth, such as the small timid girl who, guess what, is apparently his bodyguard, or the younger sister who has nothing apart from a creepy scene where the first guy states he wants to induct her into his lifestyle. Admittedly, there are a few female characters that actually have some sort of personality and background, such as Rito's slutty nurse, who actually seems to have a personality and actual investment in the plot. Another is his new handler, Karen Camilla, who fulfills the interesting archetype of being a lesbian tsundere who's in love with the main girl, for some reason, but also manipulates other girls to achieve her own personal objectives. Nonetheless, this is nothing compared to the hands of the third boy Shota, who slowly manipulates him into becoming even more deprived and heartless during his time in school, and later physically transforms him to benefit her own career advancement. However, these girls I listed, apart from the nurse, are bit players in the anime, with them only appearing when the plot requires them to, undermining any real waifu attachment you might get to them. Instead, you have random women who appear for a few scenes and are incredibly thirsty for one of the boys, have a minor flashback, then become background characters after being covered with enough censorship to choke a cat. And speaking about censorship, censorship in anime comes in a variety of ways, from the traditional objects blocking the action to camera angles and light beams. However, the core tenet of ecchi censorship is you're still allowed to have an idea of what roughly is being censored, and that the censorship itself should be kept to the bare minimum, with your mind filling in the gaps. As the thing about ecchi anime is that you should be able to watch it censored and still enjoy it, due to the general situations that the characters find themselves in and the overall narrative that the series is trying to portray. Now, as you can tell from that lead-in, this is not the case with World End Harem. I mean, just look at this censorship. I get that it is meant to be stylized, to look like part of the anime is being ripped from the screen, but come on. It is very indulgent in what it covers up, and the decision to use a black background to cover it up is a poor choice, as later in the episodes of the series, so much is covered up with censorship that you can chroma key a better anime through it, and still barely miss anything from the plot. However, the worst part of the censorship that for me is unforgivable is what it is censoring, as you would expect that with the scenes so heavily edited, that what it is actually covering up is effectively a hentai. However, despite it coming out uncensored on H anime, there is no real hardcore explicit sex scenes, unlike Redo Over Healer, so it just comes across as a slightly more ecchi version of Shinmei Mao, without the plot and story that made it good. And speaking of the story, the main problem with World's End Harem's story is that it's two stories awkwardly mashed together, as at its base you have an interesting story about how all the men in the world have been killed off due to the MK virus, and one man's journey to discover a cure, while also searching for his long-lost childhood sweetheart who's involved in a terrorist group. Which sounds like an interesting ecchi mystery series, which could have had lots of twists and turns, with characters shifting loyalties between various factions who are trying to compete for control over a modern world without men. However, at the end of episode 2, the series switches point of view to another previously frozen male character, with the series becoming a high school / revenge fantasy where the main character Shota, who, after being relentlessly bullied in high school, gets his chance to have a high school life of a hentai protagonist, before slowly undertaking a revenge plot that Redo a Healer would be happy with. As you can tell, I find this part of the story nothing but mostly pointless fan service, as if the author felt that the main story wasn't ecchi enough. Nonetheless, when they did start to combine the two stories during the last 2 episodes, it did feel like they were building up to something big, but then it just whimpered across the finishing line, with Rito meeting his childhood friend and everyone else staying in Japan. It lacked that final act that most ecchi series have to get you invested in the girls and the world. Think of when Issei escaped with Riz, or Diablo calmed Clem. These actions kept you invested in the world to a higher level than simply ending with the main character meeting another girl, as you don't really feel any attachment to any of the cast, or want to explore the world in which they live in, which is a huge shame, as a world where all the men have died recently and is solely populated by women could have had lots of interesting aspects to it. However, it is all gutted in favour of a quickly solved mystery and an obviously evil world government heralded by a sluttified version of Rit from Banished from the Heroes Party. So at the end you just don't care about what's going to happen next, and the world that the story takes place in. To conclude, this series is a dud, in that if you actually wanted to watch something similar to this, there are plenty of hentai out there which would satisfy your needs. And if you're after a good ecchi story, there are a dozen anime that do it better. This series just feels like a bland waste of your time. And if you have to watch an ecchi series, don't waste your time with this dud.